We're back with you on Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
I'm Paul Ogden.
Also with us is frequent panelist Jeff Cox. Jeff. And also Mark Waterfill, who's a candidate for Indiana State Senate, District 35 here in Indiana in the fall.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We were talking just a minute ago about...
Let's get his contact information so we can make sure we get that in again.
Absolutely. I can be reached at 317-501-6060 or through our website, waterfill4senate.com, and that's the number 4.
We were talking about education. You graduated from Indiana University Marr School of Law?
No, I did
not.
It's
a Monroe County.
No, I did not.
It's a Monroe
College. No, I did not. I graduated from IU Bloomington School of Law.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're like me and Mark. We did not graduate from McKinney School of Law.
I graduated from IU
School of Law at Indianapolis. I didn't appreciate them changing that.
I mean, that's another thing. If you've got money, the highest bidder gets to name whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I refuse to go to the Pepsi Coliseum. I don't see... okay, we discussed jobs. We discussed education.
We haven't discussed jobs yet. Not really, have we?
No, we haven't. We kind of did. You just talked about this.
Well, I know you have an opinion, obviously, on the right to work.
Sure.
Tell us what it is.
Absolutely.
You're in favor of it, right?
I do not understand how the state of Indiana has a right or an interest in controlling what contracts employers and employees enter into. So it's a very libertarian view. I just don't see why it is that the state of Indiana should come in and criminalize, Paul. Think about that. Mm-hmm. You, as an owner of a business, you will engage in criminal conduct if you draft and sign a contract with a group of employees that has certain terms on it. The state has no interest in criminalizing contracts. Before right to work was enacted, if an employer wanted to engage with a union or a group of employees and say, hey, we're going to have basically the tenets of right to work, which means we're not going to take all the dues out for everybody, they could have entered into such a contract. But no, we have now criminalized contractual provisions by the state. I think it's like a Class C misdemeanor or something like, or infraction, isn't it? A Class C infraction.
If it's something an infraction, it's not a criminal offense.
Okay, I think it is a criminal offense, though. It's
probably
misdemeanor. Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is.
Would it be fair to say that right to work is basically union busting?
Sure. I mean, it is, without a doubt. It's just a political scheme or ploy to try to erode strength by one political party.
And this is an issue that separates you from your opponent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And your opponent supported right to work?
He did vote for right to work. He also voted against raising the minimum wage in Indiana. He has, in many ways, an incredibly extreme record on a whole host of issues. We talked about health care. Mr. Young voted against the CHIP program and having enhanced checkups for the uninsured. He voted against having the state health insurance program cover autism for children. You could go on and on and on with these bizarre votes. The more that I have run and been talking to people, Mike Young has a habit of just getting in fights with people. I mean, CPAs. Well, who fights with a CPA? But there's a blood feud going on between my opponent and the CPA Society.
Okay, CPA is?
Certified Public Accountants. Right. Yeah. This past year, they had a bill to try to clean up their CLE. It was innocuous. 49-1 in the Indiana Senate. Mr. Young was the sole vote. And he has told them, I will vote against you every time that a bill comes regarding your interests. It's bizarre.
He's been in office since 2000, is that correct?
He's been in office since 1986.
But in the Senate?
He's been in the Senate since 2000, that's correct.
86, before that, where was he?
He was in the State House. He was in the House of Representatives. And this district 4 years ago, the Democrat won the Marion County portion by over 1,500 votes. At that point, Northern Morgan and Northern Johnson was in the district, and the challenger, a great guy, a really nice guy, did very poorly in Northern Morgan and Northern Johnson, the Democrat. But this Democrat raised $500 and really didn't run a really active campaign. But now they took away that Northern Morgan and Northern Johnson area, and we've got Marion, where again Mike Young lost.
Northern Morgan, Southern Johnson.
In Southern Johnson, and they swapped that for Plainfield, where I've lived since 1986. So we feel very good about this race. We think we have a great opportunity here.
Has there been any polling at all?
There has been polling, and it's very positive. Very positive. Surprisingly, Mr. Young's name recognition is not high at all for an incumbent and for somebody who's been in office for that long.
I should mention, Mike Young did support a couple things I feel strongly about. The Republican tax bill.
Huh?
And you may support that too. I mean, that you can't just arrest someone for being intoxicated in
I do.
public.
I'm very much in favor of public intoxication.
You are quite
There you
often
go.
publicly intoxicated.
No,
But then the other thing was the trouble we had with the Marion County traffic court, which you may have not been out there, where they were saying, well, if you go to trial, we're going to give you a $500 extra fine.
Right.
He did try to rein that in, though I don't think they're following the law.
One issue that Mike has advocated very strongly, he was the sponsor, he was the grandfather of Senate Enrolled Act 1, and I do adamantly oppose that bill.
Yeah.
I think that Senate...
I'm sorry, I was looking at the scroll behind us.
Is that right?
Senate Enrolled Act 1.
Exactly. I do oppose Senate Enrolled Act
What is
1. That's the stand your ground, the Castle Doctrine, the Barnes decision response bill.
Yeah, but we basically, we have self-defense as common law in the state of Indiana.
Right.
So there's nothing gained by having the stand your ground law.
Exactly.
No, the
I
Supreme
think we
Court
disagree on that.
did away with it. They basically, when they wrote the opinion, they didn't follow the statute. They didn't even cite the statute, and I think they're trying to come back and clarify that.
Well, that's because they cut so much grief for it.
Yeah.
From everybody. I think even the Attorney General's office.
They cut so much grief for what? Oh.
No, the Attorney General's office initially argued for
Yes,
the
they
interpretation that
They sure did.
I
They
read
did.
the brief.
They sure did.
Yeah,
They sure
and
did.
only after they took heed for it did he say, "Oh, we didn't want that," when actually they did.
My concern about the bill the way that it was written is that it could endanger police officers. And the FOP has endorsed my campaign, and I think that they have a very serious concern that as a result of Senate Enrolled Act 1, that you're going to get people who, officers report on a domestic violence call, and you're going to have people who think that they can use a gun, use a bat, whatever, against police officers. You're unlawfully on my property. And I don't believe that the public at large really understands what Senate Enrolled Act 1 does.
The other issue you'd mentioned at the top of the first segment was health care.
Yeah.
In terms of, well, first of all, how are you addressing it? That group of issues, or that cluster of issues?
Absolutely. I think that we have got to expand Medicaid to 138% of the poverty level. This is a tremendous opportunity that we are going to have. We are going to have, it is a full match by the federal government, meaning free to the state for a couple of years, and then it's a 9-to-1 match in the years after that.
So one thing that I've addressed to a couple of candidates who've been on the show running for state house is being that Indiana is ranked very low in the country in terms of return of federal dollars to us from what we've paid out in taxes.
Right.
Is this one means by which we can effectuate kind of a return of our money?
Absolutely. It's a 9-to-1 match for several years, and it just really surprises me that it appears the Daniels administration and the gubernatorial candidate is automatically saying we are not going to expand Medicaid in this way. Look, I have got people in my district, West Washington Street, Belmont Avenue, who don't have health care. And here's an opportunity that they can have health care. Unfortunately, spent the last couple of days at Methodist Hospital with my son and went through the emergency room there. You know, people are just presenting themselves to the emergency room. And in Marion County, we're paying millions of dollars every year for the uninsured.
Well, but Mitt Romney says if you're sick, you should go to the emergency room.
Yeah, he does that. He does say that now.
Yeah, people will come and pick you up and carry you there, and then that's just the way things
That's
are.
a little different than what he said a few years ago, but yeah.
I think the issue is more that there's a limited pot of money for the government, and that right now we're spending more than that pot of money allows. And so there are some places where something may be a good idea, but, and I'm not saying which ideas are good, but something may be a good idea, but it's not something the government should be doing just because we don't have the money for it.
Okay, well, let's take that example right there. Let's say we do not expand Medicaid to 138% of the poverty level. What are we going to do? We're going to continue in Marion County, Indiana, to pay tens of millions of dollars to Wishart Hospital and Methodist Hospital for the uninsured.
Hospital now.
Absolutely. And so we're paying for it. We pay for it in local property taxes. And the way that it ought to work is we ought to take this opportunity, get a 9-to-1 match from the federal government, and our property taxes in Marion County ought to go down because they've been relieved of that burden. So it would be up to people like Paul and you guys to be on Marion County to say, okay, now you're not paying the tens of millions of dollars anymore for the uninsured because we've taken care of that problem.
Yeah,
Property
so
taxes should be
now
down.
we can toss the money into TIFs and pro
Bike
sports
lanes.
franchise.
And bike lanes.
Well, I think that is a real opportunity. I also think we have an opportunity to have a state exchange. You know, I think it's interesting. I know that I read Mike Pence said that he participated in a state exchange at one point, but curiously...
And explain that, would you?
Well, that is where, as a part of the Affordable Care Act, states are going to have the opportunity to have an exchange where people can have the state of Indiana run the health insurance program. We've had that for years, Indiana Comprehensive. And Mr. Pence actually said, you know, at one point in his career that he participated in that. Well, now, just because we have a particular president, we have people who are saying, well, we don't want to have a state exchange.
Well, and I've participated in the state exchange because I have multiple sclerosis. And the thing about that was they essentially bid it out every couple of years, and like Anthem, WellCare are the two like go back and forth. Are they the same company? I don't know. But my rates got jacked where it was about $1,000 a month. And curiously enough, after the Supreme Court decision on the Affordable Care Act, I was able to shop around, and our household health insurance went from about $2,000 a month to about $600.
Absolutely. There's going to be tremendous changes in healthcare, of course, over the next several years. And I believe that 5 years from now, people are going to look back, and the healthcare system that will be put into place will be like Social Security or Medicare. It will be very popular.
But how do we pay for it?
It is paid for. If you read the Affordable Care Act, it actually lowers the budget deficit by about $800 billion. And they did this through a series of taxes. One tax that they did is, let's say for a moment you had $250 million. And you had that in securities, and all you did was just make interest off of that. And that's what you lived on. You lived on that $250,000 or less per year. You didn't pay into Medicare, but you got Medicare. But you didn't even have to pay into Medicare, whereas opposed to if you had a $250,000 a year salary, you were taxed on that, you paid into Medicare. So that was one of the taxes that they imposed, which only made sense.
So you're saying that taxes on this person making $250,000, on people making more than $250,000 a year, is going to pay for this entirely?
That was a big part of it. And then there were other taxes. There were medical equipment, even tanning beds, things like that paid for it. But you know, when I hear people say we're going to repeal this, I just kind of I'm curious, because if they would repeal it, it would have a huge impact on the budget deficit.
We're getting towards the end of this segment, Mark. I would just make one comment. If we legalized all drugs and taxed them, we'd have a hell of a lot of money as revenue.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Agreed.
Thanks very much for being on our show.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
And that's Civil Discourse Now today. We'll be back in just a minute. Again, what's your contact